No, obviously the testimony that we saw was incredibly emotional, I think powerful, although in a certain way and not in another way, which I'm going to get into. And I want to talk about it. So, look, I personally think highlighting the experience of the people who've been affected by this is very important. And all too often in these conspiracy theories that the right comes up with, they need characters because things can't just be abstract. Those aren't as exciting. Like, so when they have the conspiracy theory of, food processing plants being burned down, that's something, but you really want a person that you can pin it on. And so they found that with these election workers, Lady Ruby, who I think now everybody in the country loves Lady Ruby. Can we agree? She's like one of the greatest superheroes now in America. They needed those characters and they got them. And they weren't only those two, but those are two of the highest profile. And think about how amazing it is that they can go from some rando. I don't know which rando started the Ruby Freeman thing or which rando decided that Shay Moss should be a character, but they did. And now, because of the state of the Republican Party, the state of their media infrastructure, almost immediately it got to Trump and to his circle. Like the sort of stuff that should have dwelled for literally years in weird little creepy forums and all that, and at most maybe a weirdo at Breitbart would have known about it. Instead, it almost instantly gets to the president. And so in trying to pressure, Raffensperger and others, he is aware of literally all of these conspiracy theories. And it isn't just, as we've pointed out, that all of the responsible people around him shockingly were telling him that there was nothing to this. That is actually pretty amazing, and it will not be that case in 2024. It's that he comes into it with all of those conspiracy theories already well memorized. Like basically, it feels much like listening to Trump at any given time in these calls feels like the worst conversation you've ever had over Thanksgiving dinner. That's what it feels like, because that's basically what it is, because that's where he got the information from, the same place that your creepy uncle who spends too much time watching InfoWars gets his information. I'm going to continue on this in just a sec, but so Asher, when do you want us to go until? Do you have a set time? I just want to make sure that I don't go over or go under. Okay, interesting. Okay, well, we're going to see what we can do then. Okay, so he comes with all that material. It doesn't have to be based on anything, but the thing is that it has an actual cost, because it isn't just that there are people all over the country that will share that video, or that there's people all over the country who believe that someone was passing USB ports around as if they were heroin or whatever, which is this weird, needless invocation of drug dealing terminology. We all understand exactly why someone like a Rudy Giuliani would have lapsed into that. It's that these are identifiable people who will then be targeted. And I don't know that Donald Trump or Rudy Giuliani or any of them has as a goal the individual targeting. I don't think that that's necessary for them. I think they get out of lifting up, Shay and Lady Ruby and all that. They have what seems like a story. It's a cover story, really, is all that it is. There's nothing to it. But the thing is that the crazies will target those people. And just briefly, we're going to get back to that in just a sec. Like when you have something like, Libs of TikTok, all that is producing these characters. It is every day elevating a couple of random regular people who are just trying to live their lives and saying, this is now the thing that we will hate. This is now the thing that will attack. And look, if it ruins their lives, if it destroys their relationship, if it shuts down their business or whatever, I don't know. I'm not even going to know about that. I lifted them up and now I'm moving on. Libs of TikTok is not spending weeks or months tracking the individuals that they elevate for evisceration. That's not how that works. They're moving on to another thing. And so that's why on some level, I'm happy that in the hearings today, they decided to rebut that. And so you get to see the experience. What happens to a person when some of the most powerful and influential people in politics decide that they're the villain? Never mind, of course, that there was never any good evidence for it. Never mind that whether Lady Ruby and Shay single-handedly stole the Georgia elections, even if they had, Like, let's say that you rebutted that, Trump still would have lost the election. Like, there are so many redundant levels of what. I'm going to try not to swear. I won't swear. uh, it wouldn't have changed the outcome. They ignore all of that because they need a cover story. And by the way, in Trump's call, there were a couple of different bits of audio that they played of him, but one of the most powerful, I thought, was the one where Trump did the most to try to veil what he was doing. To his limited credit, he was savvy enough that in his call with Raffensperger, he never actually do people want to see, man, people really want to see these dogs. I'm trying to talk about the fate of our democracy, but okay, we'll talk about the fate of our democracy and we'll have a dog. It's not enough to talk about America's attempt to ward off fascism. We got to have pups and doggos. Okay, so we're going to have a doggo. Okay, I'm going to try to have him not fall. Okay, buddy, you're my co-host. What was I saying? Oh, so Trump actually did a fairly okay job in doing a comically transparent cover job. He kept saying that what he wanted was the truth. So that is the most proximate, immediate attempt to cover that what he's asking for is for them to invent 11,000 votes. No, it doesn't matter how. I'm not interested in how. I don't understand the mechanisms. Just do it. But that isn't enough. To have the phone call, for it to go on for more than an hour, to generate enough different stories that you can have all these different court cases across multiple states, that you can, a year later, generate a Dinesh D'Souza documentary, you need more than just saying what we want is the truth. You need mess. You need complexity. That's why you need Lady Ruby, and that's why you need Shay Moss. You need to have enough that one of the weirdos for whom this is their hobby is following this insanity. You need to give them something to grasp onto. And it needs to be personal, obviously. It needs to seem illicit. And so if you have these individuals, it's almost elevating like a regular poll worker as opposed to like a Secretary of State. And by the way, they did that too. They did all levels of this. It's almost like doing challenge mode. Like, clearly a regular election worker has basically no power to change the outcome of an election, even if they wanted to. And of course, you're not going to prove that they wanted to. But they couldn't anyway. It's almost like it's more impressive. The theories don't need to be plausible. They need to be crazy in an intriguing way. Like, why talk about Jewish space lasers? There are much easier ways to pin forest fires on something else. These people need spice. They need something that makes it more interesting than their regular lives. Not just their regular lives objectively, but their regular lives in the state that they have been left when neither the Democrats nor the Republicans seem to care about any of the problems they're facing and won't do anything to fix them. So their regular humdrum lives are boring. They need something more exciting. And when you consider that the vast majority of these people are white conservatives who are at one level or another incredibly racist, then you need to deliver not just poll workers, but if they could be black, that would be great. And if they could be women, you know how shady women are. Even better. Okay, my doggo is done with this. Okay. Ugh. Thank you for tuning in to the Doggo News Hour. It's the Doggo Report. Anyway, that's what you need. Okay, but to the focusing on it. So when you bring in CEOs to testify, or politicians or whatever, or when the actual politicians who are conducting these sorts of hearings ask their questions, it is so artificial. It is so produced and prepared, and there's basically no chance of anything organic or remotely interesting actually happening. But not this time. When Lady Ruby was doing her thing, that was somewhat prepared, but she is speaking with actual emotion, with actual heart. And when Shay was speaking, like, you could feel it in it. Someone mentioned in the chat, and shout out to the Twitch. Thanks for watching. Someone mentioned in the chat when she was like, my mom is 70. Well, I won't say how many years. Like, that is just a real thing. And you can see that she's like getting choked up over the fact that her life has been so irreparably harmed. The fact that she mentioned that she can't go out, and so she's gaining weight, like those little details just fill in the time between the 2020 election and now. And it makes you wonder, if you have any humanity, any empathy, when will the suffering end for her? When will she feel comfortable? When will Lady Ruby feel like she can call herself Lady Ruby? Will it be in 2 years? Will it be in 5 years? I don't know. Like, part of me would say, well, how could they possibly stay invested in this conspiracy theory so many, not only so many years after it happened, but after it had any chance of like, Trump is not going to be president right now. Like, he might win in 2024, but it's not going to happen. And even most of the crazies seem to have moved on from that. They're not talking about it that much anymore. So, like, at some point, don't you have to move on? But I don't know. They're still hounding the Sandy Hook families. It's been years, and they're still on that. And so I like humanizing it and making it real. And but here's the thing. So I started off by saying I like it and I don't like it. I like it because this sort of thing appeals to me. A case could be made that this sort of thing is made for a person like me. And since most of you watching this are not just progressives, but the particular brand of progressivism and leftism that doesn't just care about politics as just a abstract battle over ideas, but that cares about communities, cares about the quality of people's lives, and believes that our ideology and our policy platform are mechanisms in which you can improve the quality of people's lives. You don't want someone like Shay or Lady Ruby to suffer. Then it's probably made for you too. But here's the thing: is it made for the other people? So, to the extent that any conservatives will see this, to the extent that any conservatives are watching this, what do you think? And I'm actually watching your comments, so feel free to comment. A conservative watching Lady Ruby and a conservative watching Shay talk about their experiences, do they care? What is their reaction? I mean, look, if they believed, based on an offhand comment made by Rudy Giuliani, that they're awful and that they're trying to steal the election, being told by literally everyone that looked into it that there was no evidence whatsoever, that in fact all it was a mother handing her daughter a ginger mint, I don't know that that's likely to get through to these people. I mean, so little has been able to. I don't know that that would be the thing. Now, to be fair, I don't know. I cannot come up with a thing. On the Damage Report earlier, we were speculating about what would Trump have to say on one of these tapes for it to matter to people who are, ambiguous about this entire thing, that either believe that it was actually stolen from Trump, or there are some people who maybe suspect that Trump was trying to steal the election, but they don't necessarily understand the stakes here. They don't get the threat. They don't see why this is something that we should necessarily care about. In that case, I don't know. Maybe for some of that last group, seeing the human cost of this could matter. I wish that we lived in a world where a significant percentage of conservatives might think, well, look, I was really convinced by this, but I don't want people's lives to be ruined. But I don't know how many people are left that view politics through that lens. It's not like there wasn't always ideology. There always was. But I don't think it was seen as much through the lens of, this is a competition. Anything that makes my side look bad means my side is less likely to win, so I do not care about it. But that is where we're at. And so to zoom out from the Shay and the Lady Ruby stuff, like, it is going to be, we have to understand this going into these hearings and coming out of it, in terms of generating our expectations for what might happen. We need to understand that it is going to be a monumental task to get the right to care about a thing that it is to their perceived political benefit that they trust Trump, or that Trump wins coming out of it. Like, you might think, and I hope that you do, that you actually have, if we were to map out your political value system, that there would be a desire that what you believe and what you say and how you act is attached to the truth, and that it is related to reality. I think for myself that there is. I hope for you that there is. It's not the case for everyone. And once you go outside of our ideological bubble, I mean, they don't give a fuck at all. I just swore. Are you allowed to just on Twitch? We're not broadcasting linear. Am I going to get in trouble, Asher? I apologize. One slipped out. So I did swear there. Apologies. No, you're good. Yes. Oh my God. Oh, I'm freed up. But anyway, on their side, what they want is to be in charge. Why they want it is for a variety of different reasons. The elites want their continued economic dominance. The politicians like their position of, fame and eminence and all of that. Thank you to the TYT account. I don't know is that Brett? For the regular people, look, to some extent, they have been convinced that they're victims, that the other side is always coming for them. The other side is always changing, by the way. Some days it's a caravan of people from, hey, Brett, from, like Guatemala or something. Most recently, it's drag queens. And so they need to defend themselves from that. And look, I think on a deeper level, they don't have any hope of anything better. And if all you can get is a temporary feeling of superiority based along whatever grounds, racial grounds, gender grounds, identity and orientation grounds, whatever, then that's what you will take if that's all that you can get. And so the issue is to convince them that Donald Trump did try to steal the election. And he did that because he lost the election. He knew that he lost the election. He didn't care. He still wanted to be in charge. To get them to accept that is going to get them to have to deny a lot about themselves that is very core to themselves. And honestly, I think that their attachment to that cult is deeper than a lot of people who might be on some level or another on our side when it comes to like, hey, wouldn't it be better if we had a democracy that functioned? Do you think that the attachment to actual substantive, fair, free democracy is as strong for people on our side as their attachment to the Trump cult is on their side? That would be great. That would be awesome. I don't know that I necessarily believe it, though. Because it's abstract, by the way. Look, I'm not saying that these things should be otherwise. I get why there's an imbalance there. They think they have been convinced that Trump has their back against all odds, against literally every piece of evidence. And they believe that it is encapsulated in a person and a movement. For us, I don't know that democracy is. I don't know. Some people, really support Stacey Abrams because, she's been wrapped up with the fight for democracy in Georgia. That helps a little bit. It's harder when it's more abstract, though. A lot of our stuff admittedly is. It is on the left. They get to be very personality focused because focusing on personalities is not the best road to progress, but it is exciting and it is a great way to fill some time. The truth of the crises facing America and what actually needs to be done to fix those problems, that is by its very nature more abstract. You can ground it in individuals, but we are talking about structures. We're talking about historic trends, and we're talking about social movements and things like that. And that is going to be a little bit harder for people, I think, sometimes. And so anyway, I've gone a little bit far afield from the testimony. I loved what Shay Moss had to say. I feel terrible for the experience that she's had. Lady Ruby is my hero, and I want a Disney Plus series about her. I think that we can all agree on that. When it comes to the commentary from Trump, it is good insofar as we need to prove that he knew that what he was doing was wrong because he knew that he had actually lost the election, and he knew that what he was trying to do to reverse that was illegal, that for whatever reason is a hurdle that we need to pass. And so I am glad that they had that tape because I think that is a powerful case in pursuing those goals. Again, I'm not sure that that's necessarily to get it through to anyone. So that was powerful. Some of what they've alluded to for Thursday does sound good. If they are holding like their strongest evidence in their back pocket and making us wait literally weeks, then you are playing with fire. That is a dangerous game because people want to see it. They want and to go off as this will be my final point. I apologize, Asher. I promise I will not go until the main show. If you do your like whole big thing about democracy, then put some pressure on the DOJ. If it's this big, if it's this important, then act like it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.